Hey guys, welcome back to Skyhold Talks. My name is Sal. I'll be the host today. Today we have our guests, Lala, Marok,
Hello.
and Sense. Introduce yourself, boys.
My name's Lala. I tank for Lethal, the #1 two-night guild on US servers, known internally as Druvian's Puppets.
I am Marok. I am GM of Potent, admin of Skyhold, and been playing Prot Warrior for, since vanilla, really.
I'm Sal. I've been playing Prot since vanilla. I'm a main tank in the Guild Bound on Uzul.
I'm Sense, been playing Prot since TBC. I was a rogue in vanilla, swapped in end of mop to tank him full time.
Today on Skyhold Talks, we're going to be talking about Prot in Legion. Is kind of like a retrospective sort of take on it, and then what's to come in BFA. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them throughout the show. We have people in the chat. They're going to be writing everything down, and then we'll answer them at the end. So first off, reflections from Legion. Good things, bad things. We started off very well as a spec in EN, and then the nerfs.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it all came from that last beta buff, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Norpain got buffed, and then it was just
Yep.
like super overpowered for most of EN. You had like people tanking like 3 or 4 dragons on scenarios, just all tanking them, and like no other tank could do that.
And Inspiring Presence stacked, right?
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
Yep.
I still remember that day where we all saw that buff come in on beta, and we were like, "Oh no, oh
Yeah.
no, not this!"
Terrifying.
And then it got nerfed. Feels bad.
Yeah.
And then we were back to being
We were still
Well,
kind of strong.
I think,
Well, we were back to being in the eyes of the community, at least.
I mean,
I think
community is
the
community.
big
the
deal.
usual spot. Yeah.
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 There was never really justification to call us bad. I mean,
No.
we were still the best tank for a bunch of shit in the end, even after the nerfs, like dragon tanking on what's his name, Cenarius.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Xavius was still pretty easy. I mean, that was just because of tuning, though.
Yeah,
I
Xavius
imagine
was-
that magic damage could have been pretty nasty otherwise.
Yeah.
and even in like Nighthold, where Power was generally like regarded as bad, it was only really actually like fairly significantly worse than other tanks on like 2 fights, like Star Augur and
2, yeah.
Croesus.
It's not even like we were bad. It's
You
just
could
that
make a
players were
case for
so
botanist
good.
too.
Yeah, Botanist was a little bit rough, but like
We had to
Croesus was
swap with
definitely
Admire from
like
last phase.
yeah, Croesus was definitely like, this is not a good fight
Not
for Power
ideal.
Warrior. Yeah.
No.
But like every other fight is like whatever, it's more than viable.
Even in trial, oh no, Odin was with the spears there.
No, don't talk about Odin.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Let's
Odin,
not do that now. Moving on. TOS was great. TOS was
Well,
very good to us.
it was good to us. It was not the greatest raid ever, but it's fine for
TOS
Prot.
where we really started getting just, I think, too much rage for the
Yes.
class.
Yeah. 'Cause that's when we had because TOS had the tier 20 set bonuses, which was the Berserker Rage ones.
Yep.
Where with like AM, you get super ill cooldown Berserker Rage, you get all that rage from Berserker Rage. So you said like just
It's
flooded
real
with rage
good.
the whole time.
Kind of needed it though.
Yeah.
I mean,
We kind of needed it.
I think it made us, frankly, kind of overpowered in some situations because you just had infinite ignore pain depending on the fight and how the damage intake was. So
I wouldn't say it was overpowered. It was strong. We weren't Bears and Nighthold strong.
right,
But
yeah, no,
it's just like what was the Naga boss, the big bulky one? I can't remember his name. The one with the bleed.
Harjitan, yeah,
Argitan. Like that's where it came really in handy. It's just like there's some fights in TOS that were really good for us, and then we have other things like in Nighthold, like Croesus. So I think it's one of those things where as the expansion goes on, it balances out.
yeah.
And people just don't look at it over the entire expansion. People look at it tier to tier to tier. Then we get to legendaries. Definitely a few legendaries that you had to have as prot.
Yes. Yeah.
Bracers were pretty
bracers.
fucking important.
Braces were like
You could not play
really
the
good.
class without having bracers.
They're just so far and away like the best survivability legendary. Like just all the other ones like gloves, belts, well I guess those are like the main ones. Those are relatively balanced, and then bracers were just like way better than everything.
I would say prior to us having even more rage flooding, Soul was really, really good too.
Oh yeah, that's the other.
Mhm.
Soul was also very good. Yeah. But in Taurus, I feel like in Taurus, like TOS was also a good tier for us.
It was. For sure.
Definitely. All the
So,
scary bosses had blockable
yeah.
tank busters, so
And that's
And,
the
like-
other thing. Like getting Bastion during TOS
Oh.
was such a good thing for us. Like even just the rage alone, the rage increase alone from TOS would have been amazing. And then on top of that, getting an extra 20% block chance or block reduction. And having that being able to be added to crit block and
Yeah,
then
it was a little much.
guaranteeing a crit block whenever we wanted.
I
That's
missed
why-
that ability, man.
Yeah, we had,
Yeah.
that's why we had such, like, we could do Proud Warriors, and, other tanks couldn't do this with as much ease as, like, Solo Tank Agrimar to 24 stacks or whatever.
Yep.
And it's something really only a Proud Warrior could do, like,
Double
rely
foe
heavily.
breakers every single combo.
Yep,
Casual 145 mil block, no big deal.
Hee hee.
definitely had our strengths there. So it was compared to like, I don't want to talk about this too much, but compared to like WAD, for example, I think Prot had a much better time in Legion than it did in WAD in terms of overall like strength and raids.
I agree. Perception
agree,
of it
yeah.
was just a lot worse.
Yeah,
The perception just it's really tough when you go up against a spec like a bear or monks.
Monks. Yeah.
But
It's different to skill floor and skill ceiling to
Yeah,
some degree.
you
perception.
just
I
need to
mean,
play really well on a warrior, even just to do average. And then on a monk, you just iron skin brutal. It's just completely different. It's not even fair.
yeah, like
But-
Pro Warrior is always like it's never like bad, and I think Pro Warrior has it tough with community perception in particular. You always see and hear people calling Pro Warrior bad with really no basis, and I think
Well,
it mainly comes
there is
down
a
to
basis for that. The
Well-
average prot warrior is going to be significantly worse than the average monk just because of how
It's
the
more
spec works.
punishing.
right. Yeah, like Pro Warrior isn't nearly as forgiving, but like when played properly, it's.
But that's why the community perception is the way it is. As a monk, you don't have to do like even if you just never purify, you're still going to be completely fine on a monk. Whereas on a warrior, if you miss time shield block in Legion, fucked.
Dead.
Like,
Good
100%.
luck with Fell Claws.
Right. It doesn't matter what you do. Like you have all the cooldowns in the world, but like fourth scythe, fell claws. If you don't have shield block up, you're fucked. That's just how it worked.
Yeah.
So as a baseline, you needed to have a certain amount of skill to do just average in comparison to the other specs, which is why the community perception for the class was the way it was. But it's nothing we can really do about that.
Right. And it's just the distinction between like Pro Warrior it's not bad, it's just you need to know how to play it well.
Mhm.
So it is a bit of a misguided view on Pro for sure, which is unfortunate, but yeah, I can't do anything about it.
Some of the changes during Legion, though, really helped alleviate that in terms of community perception. Because like getting Devastator in 715 was such a nice thing for the average, even just the average prop player, that it made it a lot easier with the rage gain and then the increase in GCDs that you could use, not having to use Devastate and other stuff like that. Tier bonus differences were really nice to us, and in
Yep.
terms of helping.
And Devastator was fun while it lasted.
It was.
I'm really gonna miss T21. I'm really gonna miss T21.
When you think about it, Pro Warrior's been reworked a lot over the past like 2 years, I guess. Got reworked completely going into Legion. Pretty substantial rework in 715 because we lost Focused Rage. got Devastator, changed playstyle a lot, and then it's been reworked completely again in BFA. So
It's felt like for a long time, like since vanilla, almost every other expansion proc gets really significant changes to it, and then
yep,
Legion in particular has been much more pushing that.
yeah, for sure.
In a way, I think they really have to. It's like in vanilla, we were the tanks, and as expansions went on and balance went on, and more tanks came to the meta, we kind of fell behind, both in terms of like class identity and just what we could do. Because like
little
more
bit.
fights came out, like during Kata, just the amount of magic damage there was, we had no way to deal with that at all.
I mean, even in Wrath, we get Paladin and Wrath for things like Heroic, Lich King, and all that kind of shit.
There was nothing we could do to keep up. It was basically an arms race in terms of abilities and stats, talents. We just couldn't keep up. So I think the reworks have just been attempts to get us to where we needed to be. I think we're in a good spot, BFA.
Yeah,
Tank imbalances are really small. I think mitigation changes being swapped to work on primary stats has really helped alleviate that a lot.
yeah. I think
Steve,
it's.
go ahead.
I think it's like it's fair to say that overall in Legion, Prot fared like very well, and I think in BFA it's gonna do at least the same, if not even better, just with the tank design changes they're making and how our kit is now and things like that. So I'm hopeful for how we'll do in BFA.
It's really good. In terms of BFA, though, what's the average player going to notice first day going in?
I think the most clear difference is just going to be how the spec plays and feels. Because going back to like even before 715 when we had Focus Rage, you had Focus Rage and Ignore Pain off the GCD. So the APM of Prod in Legion was very, very high. It's way different in BFA where Ignore Pain is now in the GCD, and really all of our main rotational abilities are on the GCD, including like Avatar and Demoralizing Shout. So the only thing off the GCD is Shield Block. So it's going to feel a lot slower. Not as high APM spec. And I think it's really the main thing in terms of like actual play.
You're still hitting something every global. It's just not as much off the global. Yeah.
It's not as spammy, especially with the removal of Battle Cry and T21's change from that.
You're spamming Thunderclap instead of Shield Slam now, basically.
Yeah, you're not even spamming that that as much as you are Shield Slam.
Right. Yep.
So just slower overall.
Gonna miss Battle Cry. I think Avatar's better though.
I think it's a lot better for
More
us.
fun.
Oh yeah, I think having Avatar, I think from even from like just a fantasy point of view, I think it's way cooler.
Oh yeah.
It fits the spec much better.
Well, it also impacts our talents a lot because losing Battle Cry, DPS wise, crit has gone up significantly.
Yes.
And it doesn't make it feel as bad as much when we get a piece that's 20 eye levels higher and has main stack crit on it.
Yep.
Defensively, it's great, but offensively in Legion, it was horrible. Now it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a welcome change with that. What else did we gain? We got Rallying Cry, which is nice.
Rallying Cry baseline is so good.
Yeah.
Fear, Intimidating Shout.
Intimidating Shout. Yep. And then Shockwave is now baseline as well, which is really nice.
We did lose a little bit though.
Super niche though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did lose a little bit. Warbringer was significantly nerfed, especially because it intervenes on the GCD now.
Yeah. Warbringer being gone is unfortunate. That was fun talent.
Yeah.
It was.
But
I liked the trade-off for losing your mobility for stuns.
yeah.
Especially with it being off the general DR. It was just so good to have. Now we have Shockwave baseline, but Shockwave is on the regular DR with everything else.
Yep.
We lost Inspiring Presence too.
Yeah. That
actually does suck a lot for more triage heavy fights.
I think
like Maiden and stuff like that. Inspiring Presence was super good.
Healers.
Yeah.
I'm sure your guys' healers too. Like my healers were always incredibly thankful to have me in on a fight like Mistress or Coven or something like that.
Mine hated it. They
yeah.
wanted
Sometimes they
let us pad.
Yeah.
I used to get our healers to bribe me to turn it off. I don't know about you guys.
Nope.
Yeah, I had that a
I-
couple times.
No.
I gotta
Nope.
pad my
Telling me
HPS,
to-
bro.
I
Telling me to
refuse.
turn off Inspiring Presence.
But moving on to more significant parts of BFA as the right traits. We have a few that stand out immediately. Deafening Shout definitely being one of them. Iron Fortress being another. How impactful do you guys think these are to the general gameplay? Start with Deafening Shout.
Deafening Crash.
Yeah.
Deafening Crash, Shout, and same thing.
Deafening Crash is pretty significant, especially since it looks like they're going to keep it at 2 seconds duration instead of the one that Tooltip stated.
Yeah, it got changed to 2, so it's definitely probably staying that now.
Yeah.
Damage was nerfed though, right?
A little bit.
It's still
Um,
good. It's still you still do crazy damage with Thunderclap in dungeons at least.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I feel like Iron Fortress is really good for dungeons too.
Yeah.
Just because you're getting hit by so many things, the damage component of it's pretty decent, and
That
obviously
got
more
nerfed
block is
as
better.
well.
It did.
It's way
okay.
weaker now compared to what it used to do. Like
Was that
really
just
bad.
a
I don't
damage
know if you've
output or
done
the damage reduction?
the damage output was
Yeah.
nerfed.
Still,
Look
that's really, really good damage reduction wise. Most of the damage you'll take in dungeons will be auto attacks.
Right.
Definitely.
And you look
although-
at like Brace for Impact, which is actually very like similar in function to Iron Fortress. And I think because it's you get it increases your block by slightly less. Actually, it's almost about half for 9 seconds. But since they can overlap, you're like very likely to get more than one shield slam cast within that 9 seconds, and we'll probably be able to have like two stacks up of Brace for Impact at the same time. So I think
yes.
it's better for survivability than Iron Fortress.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for like damage, and particularly in dungeons, Iron Fortress is probably a little bit better.
Yeah, I think meta wise, if we see any prot warriors, since you're definitely going to play warrior, don't bullshit me.
Oh yeah.
For MDI, Deafening Crash, definitely going to be a must. At least having one Iron Fortress somewhere is probably going to be very significant as well. And then I think for the last traits, you'll see Brace for Impact will probably be in there somewhere, just for the mini Iron Fur like buffs they provide, and probably just stacking the other two where you can for a bit more damage.
Yep,
Callous
pretty much.
Reprisal might end up being okay.
Yeah, that
I'm not sold on it, but
it's
might
gonna be
have a place.
interesting because in terms of just like pure survivability, if it would be interesting to look at how that trait affects vengeance, because if you force the use of vengeance or force the use of revenge with vengeance with that trait, it might actually end up being pretty good. It's hard to say though. So that's like a potentially good trait to have.
There's a few other traits though that definitely look like traps. Definitely look
Bloodsport?
like traps. Bloodsport is 100% for sure. People are going to look at Leech and be like, "Hey, Leech is pretty good," and it's like, no, not like it used to be, bro. Chill.
The changes to DPS relative to player health pools is a really bad sign for Leech in general, just across the board. DPS
Yeah.
classes, healers, and tanks all. It's not going to be nearly as good as Leech was in Legion.
I do think it is like a little bit interesting that Deafening Crash is really the only one where like the sort of primary effect that you're looking at, which in this case is increased duration of demoralizing shout, does not increase with additional traits, where all the other ones they more or less stack.
Yep.
So it's like it's pretty much the only like prot specific trait where you really only want one, unless you're just going for thundercrab damage.
Well, it used to stack, and then its stacking was a bit too.
Yes,
too
that was
overpowered.
broken. That was broken like completely.
Yeah.
100% demo shot uptime, like easily.
Yep.
It was like having belt again.
It being 2 seconds is still pretty insane uptime that you can get with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like during with UF and with AM during Avatar, you have pretty much 100% uptime on demo shot, and then like by the time it ends, you have demo shot back up anyway. So like super high uptime on it.
Be
Really
hard
good.
to not have it up when you want it for damage.
Yeah.
So,
In
And I
terms
guess
of, go ahead.
Well, I guess one thing actually we didn't really touch on that much is the talent changes, which I think is a pretty significant part of prod changes. If we want to talk about that for a bit.
For the most part, they're kind of the same. We're still using anger management. We're still using the demo shot one that I can't remember the name
Booming
of right
voice,
now.
yeah.
Booming voice, that one. We're still using things like safeguard potentially in Mythic Plus. The only one that really comes to mind for me is the one that buffs Avatar, because that's a very, very, very significant change and something that we definitely have to have. And basically everything for that tier, bolster being another talent, because
I
that
think
just adds so much shield block uptime.
Bolster is crazy.
I think taking into the fray is pretty unique compared to having ignored it basically all of Legion.
Yeah,
And it feels pretty good.
it does. Yeah, having account allies, it's like, it's kind of fun if you're tracking the stacks. It's kind of fun to see, what that you're at high stacks pretty much all the time, just because there's always allies and things near you to trigger it.
And
So
pets
Yeah.
count too.
Right.
And that's also a little bit weird on the tooltip because it's not a flat 3% haste per stack. It's kind of like that bonus haste that Shadow Priest get with their Void form.
right. Well, it's just that all haste bonuses like that are multiplicative. So
And most people
it-
don't think like that.
right. So it's more than, at 5 stacks, it's more than 15% haste, and the more haste you had previous to the increase, the more haste you'll have after the 15%.
Yep.
So it actually gets better. Into the fray gets better with the more haste you have, which really applies to all haste increases anyway. Yeah, I think overall the talents have improved in BFA. There's still, I don't know, there's still some talents that like just have no reason to exist pretty much, and it's kind of disappointing that they're there because there's just not a choice. So,
Never
but
change, Ravager. Never
yeah,
change.
Ravager, Never Surrender, and like Impending Victory. Just bleh.
I mean, at least Never Surrender got changed. Ravager's still the exact same thing. They tried.
Yeah, I think I said this in the pro community post, but I think compared to other tanks, we don't have a lot of like fun talents. They're all just passives that kind of just increase throughput in one way or another. Where some other tanks like paladins have what's it called? One where they make the big shield and you can stand behind it.
Aegis of Light.
Aegis of Light.
Yeah, like Pro Warriors having something like that would be really cool, but we don't really have anything like that. So it's a bit. I think it's a bit disappointing in that regard. But otherwise, I think talents are good.
I am
I mean-
kind of happy that most of the talents are just passives, just because the GCD rotational values for each of our abilities, it's really, really cluttered.
Yeah, our rotation is pretty bloated. So
Uh,
having like actives would be like rotational actives might not be a good thing to have in talent tree, but
Cooldowns or something.
like additional
Yeah.
cooldowns I think would be cool.
I think as far as passives go, things like Unstoppable Force are really well designed for still
Mhm.
changing up your gameplay patterns
Yeah.
though. So
Yeah, like Unstoppable Force is really fun. Like that's a
Yeah,
great talent.
Very fun.
Bolster is also like feels good to press. Just have block for 15 seconds on a whim. That's good as well.
One thing I really would like to see is the removal of some of the talents that we'll never use, and possibly give us something back a little bit. Like I would really like to see Nelth's Fury as a talent. I know they did that with some other specs, like Ret Paladin. They got Wake of Ashes as a talent, changed up a little bit, but it
I
would
think
work.
some
It would
some
work a little
redesign of Node's
weirdly.
Fury
Yeah,
would be
it would
really
work
cool.
very weirdly with the way block changes work now, as block scales with the value of your shield and whatnot. But just being able to have that guaranteed defensive buff, I think that would very easily make it worth being put on the level 100 talent tier.
Yeah, or like having like a legendary bracer effect instead of Never Surrender, for example. Like just
That would be nice.
something
Yeah.
like that.
The
Because
value
that
of that would have gone down a lot just because of how much rage we
Right.
are limited in spending right now, but it just existing would be really helpful.
Yeah, because like for just to go on that for a second. For example, let's say you did replace Never Surrender with the bracer effect in fights where you either already have 100% effective shield block uptime without bolster, or where blocking isn't really important. You have that choice there. Where like right now you just pick bolster for everything.
Yep.
So just introduce some choice. guess to go back to Azurite traits for a second, and I guess because we talked about the traits themselves, but we think that they're actually interesting and like a proper replacement for artifact weapons and tier sets.
I think they're kind of a shift in between them. There are things with relics that we never looked for. It was this relic or that relic we went for. Like, you had to have Bastion defensively. It was either the Thunderclap or the Revenge relics offensively. There was no in between. I feel like it's going to be the same for Azurite traits. It's this or it's nothing. Because
think-
there's a few of them that are just you have to have.
I think honestly we're a lot better off than other classes though, in terms of the variance of what traits we'll use. A lot of classes have like 1 or 2 traits that they'll
Mhm.
even look at, and everything else is just garbage. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy with the state of prots.
I think looking at all the traits overall, I think tanks in particular kind of got shafted with the non-spec specific choices, because if you look at them, they're all RNG, and one thing tanks don't like is RNG and not being reliable. So we're very more so than like DPS, we're very locked into our spec specific ones because they are consistent bonuses. So
Yep.
the choice there is a bit diminished, but oh well. I mean the spec ones are more fun and interesting anyway. So it's
Hopefully
like,
this is
whatever.
just the start of it too, and we see
Yeah.
like actually interesting stuff later on.
They also kind of consistently nerfed our like tier 2 traits that were good for tanking and stuff too. Gem hide getting nerfed, stuff like that.
Yeah, Gem Hide's still really good though.
Even after the nerfs.
They
Yeah.
did make some of the tier 3 traits. I forget the name of it, but it's the absorb that just pops up every 30 seconds like Pride has.
Yeah, resounding protection. It does a lot.
It was basically useless before, and now it at least is a little bit of a shield.
When you're talking like okay. That's okay. This is one thing I hate about
Just
this
the
is
inner
they
traits.
they call it Blizzard data calls it like the inner ring, like above the
Yeah.
eye level increase tier 1, but like it's the third ring you get to. So it's really dumb. Yeah. Oh well. But
One thing I really do like is not having to have 3 artifacts to worry about. It's just everything's on the neck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. I can
it's
play
definitely
a
an
DPS
improvement.
spec and not feel like a gimp now.
And being able to specifically, like, when we first heard about artifact or Azurite traits, I was worried they were going to be something like the Netherlight Crucible, kind of like a mix between that and artifacts. And I'm really happy that specific pieces of gear have specific traits on them, and we can just zone in on those specific item pieces to get what we need.
Right. Yeah, it's really nice to be able to like target the one that you want and go for it, and it's rewarding to be able to get something that you're after and not have to rely on RNG to get it.
Mhm.
So yeah, Azurite system overall is it's an interesting system. It's like a good system. I also think it has the potential to be annoying just because you have to take eye level into account. So you not only are you considering all these different traits on 3 different tiers, you also have to, wonder if the strength increase that you're getting, particularly because Prot Warrior has Vanguard, which is the strength to armor conversion. When's eye level worth taking, and all those things need to be figured out on case by case basis. So it's a lot to consider when looking at it, but yeah, I think it's a good system overall.
Definitely agree. I think it'll be kind of neat, at least because you won't want to change out a deafening crash trait for almost anything just because of the feel of it. But I think most traits, honestly, eye level will end up being a bump for past like 10 or 15.
Yeah,
Pretty much the same thing that happened in Legion, yeah.
right, and you also just have to consider that like most of the traits, with the exception of maybe Deafening Crash, are probably pretty close in value anyway. So like, even if you're not getting, say, the second best trait, you're getting the third best trait, but it's an eye level upgrade. The difference between those traits is probably so small that eye level is going to be
Right,
better anyway. So yeah, let's see. Let's talk about GCD changes real quick, because I think that's a major sort of pain point for a lot of people.
Shouldn't be there.
Yeah. I think
Ignore
under-
Pain, Avatar, Demo Shout. Like Avatar, sure, I could see it, but the other two, like, sucks.
yeah.
I mean,
Demo
I'd
shout
even
on the
accept
GCD.
demo shout.
I don't. I would rather have not, but it's like
I'd accept demo
okay.
shout on the GCD only if it was on the GCD when BV was talented.
I
Because then
I
it's
get
technically a DPS cooldown.
I
Yeah.
get more upset about Divine Shield being on GCD on a Paladin than I do demo shout.
I actually didn't know that
Yeah.
Divine Shield's on the
Divine
GCD.
Shield being on GCD feels really bad. Because
Yikes.
when you need to press it and you just hit like something else, you're fucked.
When
I
you
think-
hit Divine Shield, but you just hit Letter the Protector. Yikes.
I think Blizzard's like blanket application of the GCD changes is kind of the issue because there's places where it makes sense and places where it doesn't. Like they added all of every tank's secondary active mitigation tool to the GCD, like Ignore Pain and Light of the Protector. And for Paladins, having Light of Protector on the GCD is like way worse than having Ignore Pain on the GCD. Because Light of Protector is a reactive spell. So I think it would have been much better if they looked at how like each ability actually works and where it's used and done it that way. Because they kind of applied it to the same types of
Agreed.
abilities, but it doesn't really work for everything doing that. But
There are things that should and shouldn't be on the GCD. I don't think Ignore Pain should be on the GCD just partially because it's mitigation and partially because the rotation is so damn cluttered with trying to make the choice between do I hit everything else is on cooldown. Do I hit Devastate for a shield slam, proc reset chance, or do I hit Ignore Pain to help my healers out and reduce the incoming damage? It's not even a tough decision. It's a shitty decision to make.
yeah, and I think
I agree.
what you just said is probably Blizzard's justification for doing so because it does add that choice, but I don't think
It's not really a choice though. It's kind of like a forcing us to do
right.
that
It's-
shouldn't be made in the first place.
It's adding these like rotational decisions, but it's not necessarily a good thing to add just because they're not fun. And like that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what the point of a rotation is, to be engaging and fun. And
It's complexity for the sake of complexity, and it doesn't work. And all the tanks, well, not monks because monks are still the same, but all the tanks have that shit now.
I think it also puts us in a unique decision that other tanks don't necessarily have, and that we're choosing to either spend our rage on offense or on defense. And like Bears have that with Maul versus Iron Fur, but almost no other tank actually has you're spending your resource on an offensive thing like Revenge or a defensive thing like Ignore Pain.
yeah, because we already have the choice, and putting it on the GCD kind of makes it just more annoying to make that choice, I guess.
Yep.
One way to look at it. So
More punishing if you choose the wrong thing.
right. So I think you can see what Blizzard's going for with it, but I don't think they did it in the best way that they could have.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of suck.
Yeah. Even with the decision though, I don't think survivability is majorly concerned unless you really fuck up. And the only way you're really gonna fuck up is the same as it was in Legion if you fuck up with shield block.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't think the GCD changes are a concern for like survivability really. It's mainly just a feel kind of thing. So
The one thing I do like though is how much damage we do.
Yeah.
Whoo,
yeah.
lad.
Oh yeah.
We might not have much in the way of utility, but damage, whoo boy.
Yeah, and like
think we're
particularly in Mythic
severely
Plus.
underrated in that regard right now.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons
Nobody talks about it.
why Vengeance is regarded so highly, is because of their
Right.
damage. And
Well, they
Prot
have
Warrior.
good damage with utility, but our damage is better. It's not even better by a small amount. It's better.
Is it? I actually don't know how much damage Vengeance is doing exactly.
Since this is where you come in, friend.
For,
Yeah,
for
since-
Mythic Plus, at least, yeah, we do is
It's
crazy.
absurd.
Cool lad. That's where our damage is right now.
Right.
And this is with like stuff that's been nerfed. Thunderclap, the traits have been nerfed like 2 times now, and I think the Revenge one got nerfed too. It's just like still just do a bunch just the way the whole Avatar, Unstoppable Force, all that stuff works. And like if you pull big in these dungeons, you top out crazy high.
Yeah, and even on single target damage is still good.
Yep.
Because
Mhm.
the Thunderclap just does a lot of damage regardless.
Yep.
When your AoE hits harder than your single target.
Yikes. That's one thing that does feel good though. Is it feels good. Like we don't have much utility, but I feel like the trade-off of not losing, but just not having as much utility as the other tanks do in comparison for a lot more damage and Mythic Plus, for example, is an okay trade-off for me.
I think
As long as it
affecting
stays that way. Yeah.
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 And it isn't so much like the lack of utility. We have utility. It's just that our utility types aren't as useful for Mythic Plus as the other like utility Kings and M Plus. Intimidating Shout will either break really quickly unless you're using it at like the start of the pull and pulling one thing away. Or Commanding Shout can be useful, but in most times in Mythic Plus, Commanding Shout's not going to be the difference maker compared to just doing a fight correctly in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, just the intimidating. So it's just the AoE interrupt, basically. You don't
Yeah.
use it for anything else than just
Yeah.
interrupting a cast.
If they were going to reduce our damage though, in a trade-off though, and I know you guys hear me say this a lot, but if they're going to reduce our damage, they better give us back banners.
Banners would be interesting.
I would love banners even if they did nothing and I could just place them somewhere to charge to that spot.
Dude,
Yeah, that would be cool.
Mocking banner that also interrupts in
That's
a
OP.
radius. Dude, it's grip.
That's
It's
OP.
it's grip mixed with Dave. It'd be
It's
nice.
OP.
What do you mean it's OP?
I think overall though, like in comparison to Legion, at least we are much better off in Mythic Plus than we were previously.
I agree.
Particularly for like pushing keys and
Especially
things like
with the amount of stuff that is either blockable or reflectable compared to just not being, and you having to have something for it every single time it comes up.
that. If you look at the damage breakdown in dungeons, like the damage taken breakdown,
It's all melee.
it's all
blockable.
melee.
Yeah.
Like 80-90%
Yeah.
melee. So
Now-
that's good for warriors, obviously.
This goes back to that community perception thing though, because I know Sense and I have talked about this a lot, but everybody, it seems, especially the community at large, is still stuck in the Legion mentality where it's self-sustain, all about that self-sustain. But nobody has that self-sustain. It doesn't matter what tank class you are, you need to be babied by the healer. And I feel until people get used to that people are still going to view us as bottom tier tanks, which we are most certainly not.
It's just going to be one of those things that people have to experience for themselves. They have to see
Pretty
that
much.
it's not the same self-healing, and once they see that, it'll start to shift. But until then, you just have to put up with everybody saying we're trash, basically.
No self-healing, no self-healing. It really is a thing that every single tank is going to need an external source of healing. Even like during cooldowns with like Vamp Blood, Death Knights aren't completely independent. Same thing with Paladins. You need
Demon
a
Hunters
healer.
too.
Yeah.
And the thing that's unique about protection is almost similar to Brewmaster in that it gives the healer much more of a smooth thing to heal.
Right, like watching Demon Hunters and DKs do stuff on Mythic Plus and the beta, they do have self-healing, but as the trade-off, they take a lot more damage and it's a lot more spiky.
Yep.
Whereas for us, incoming, we mitigate a lot more damage and it's a lot smoother, so it's easier for the healer. For me, like when I've been doing stuff on beta, they've enjoyed how much more less spiky it is. I enjoy how much more less
Smooth,
spiky
yeah.
it is.
You mean
Yeah,
you're
I
not
think-
playing a Paladin on the beta?
I've played both. Shut up.
I think the changes that have been made to self-sustainability for tanks is like good for prod in particular because it gives that weakness to every other tank essentially. So we're not going to be in a situation where like these tanks with the self sustainability are just better because they have that, because no one has it anymore. So
Right.
it's a much more balanced environment.
In one way, it does suck coming from Legion because I really, really enjoyed, especially with the bracers, kind of being able to do everything on my own and have the healers not really have to worry about me. And just like the difference between, like, I consider myself above average, but even just the difference between me and shut up, Sense. Even just the difference between somebody like me and somebody like Sense, like there's a marked difference in how much we need to be healed and how much damage we mitigate and do. And just the difference between the top and the bottom compared to Legion is a lot less. It's a lot closer, and it kind of sucks because it's harder to, like, if every tank, it doesn't matter your skill level, needs to be babied, then it's really kind of, it sucks not being able to be. I'm not making
I-
up.
No, I see what you're
You know what
saying.
I'm saying.
I think the skill expression is still there. The difference will just be whether in raids, just your healers like rolling hots on you is enough for the most part, or you needing direct attention almost all the time, kind of thing. Whereas in the Mythic Plus, it'll be more about do you spike out and die because you didn't press cooldown at the right time, or do you actually play properly?
Ever since Skyhold started to become a bigger thing and we were helping people, that's one thing I've always noticed is that people coming in and looking for help, they're like, "Oh, why is this bad? Why is this bad? Why am I taking so much damage?" We're not like other tanks in that our cooldowns are reactive. We're different in that everything is supposed to be proactive.
Right.
So I see people like this, especially is going to be a big one, but I've seen people just not using Last Stand at all. And they're like, "Oh, it's supposed to be no shit ability." And like, no, you basically use that whenever you know a big hit's coming in, or just even if something's not, you use it to reduce incoming damage. And that's going to be something that's really important going into BFA with Bolster, especially just because not on top of the health gain, it also gives 15 seconds of shield lock.
Oh yeah, bolster and anger management together is just the cooldown of it is what, like a minute. So if you don't have to use it every minute, but you should be using it pretty often.
Yeah. It is interesting though with demoralizing shout with booming voice. It's more or less used as a damage cooldown because you're casting on cooldown. Last Stand is being used to increase block up time. So you're really only cooldown that you have left to use as an actual traditional cooldown of shield wall.
Yep.
But it's not really an issue because you can cover everything with your usage of demoralizing shout and Last Stand anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And with anger management, everything is a little cooldown. So
They did. I missed the Mythic Fetid Devourer testing, but on Heroic,
tanks are getting slammed, I think.
Yes.
from
Yeah, tanks are getting slammed, but the off tank that gets hit by like the big tank buster hit, I mean, at least before the 50% mark where Fetid starts doing more damage, you could live that with just shield block for every single hit. And then once 50% hit, you need like shield block +1 to not like dip dangerously low, but you could live it with just shield block.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do like is most other tanks don't have a form of magic mitigation. We still have spell reflect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even at only 20%, it's a good thing to have. That and Ignore Pain obviously does work for magic damage as well, whereas things like Blood Shield for Death Knight doesn't.
Losing reflective plating though sucked, especially forgetting about it coming into pre-patch.
You
and then
feel it a
doing,
lot in Mythic
Oh, yeah.
Plus.
going into
So-
upper, dude, and trying to do Medivh like we used to.
Yeah.
Whew. That was a wake-up call real quick. But I think that's pretty much it for BFA. We've kind of talked about everything we've needed to talk about.
Yeah, as an overall thing though, I think survivability isn't really going to be a concern in BFA.
No.
Damage is really good. The spec like I think it feels good overall. It and particularly around that point where with the feel, it's something you definitely have to get used to. So when I first tried out Prot with all the changes, I was like, this is not fun.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
a
mainly
trip.
just because it's so different that you have to get used to it. And once you do get used to it and you figure out kind of what you're doing, it's fun again. So yeah, I think it's in a good place for BFA for sure.
Any of you two have anything to add?
No, I agree.
It just takes an adjustment period. Yeah, it like at first I was like a lot of people, and I really hated it, and I was like, everything about this sucks. The class is dead to me. But I stuck it out, played with it for a while, got used to the changes, and I do enjoy it for the most part now.
Get a deafening crash. It's fun. It's really fun, like
Oh,
keeping
yeah.
up the demo show and stuff.
Is this a part where I seriously announce that I'm not playing Warrior in BFA?
Yep.
Sal's
All right.
abandoning us. Feels bad.
Shut up. Personal enjoyment. You don't know, right? You were a monk, like, and bear all of Legion, dude.
That's true. That's true. I did play my monk a lot. But monk's still fun. Monk's fun. Pro Warrior
Yeah.
is more
Did
fun.
we have any Twitter questions?
I don't believe we had any Twitter questions. We do have some Twitch questions.
We
Yeah,
do.
and then this is a good time for anyone in the chat. If you guys want to ask any additional questions, feel free to do so now, and we'll get to them. So
All right. Starting though from Zunima, why should you play Prot in BFA? What does it bring compared to other tanks?
You play it because you want to play Warrior.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the whole tank, like what tank should I play question is so
Subjective.
well. It's a question that honestly doesn't really make sense because if you're asking that question, and this is maybe a bit toxic, but if you're asking that question, you're not in the position where that needs to be answered anyway. Because if you're in a position where tank choice actually matters, you already know the answer to that question.
In some
and-
ways, I can see it making sense for like somebody who's a bit more casual, or they're entering tanking for the first time. Perhaps playing Warrior is not the best choice for you just because of how punishing it can be. Something more like Bear or Monk would be acceptable. But in terms of like tanks are going to be so subjective because it's just personal enjoyment and play style. Like for example, I'm not going to be playing Warrior in BFA as my main just because I don't enjoy the new play style. I'm going to be playing Paladin instead, but Warrior is still going to be my main alt, and I'm still going to play it in raids and whatnot for shits and giggles when I'm just done on the Paladin. That's how it works.
A big thing is it depends on your mindset somewhat. If you are very predictive of the damage coming in, and if you like reducing it as much as possible beforehand and letting either your healers or other people deal with the aftermath, Prot fits really well for you. Whereas if you prefer going and reacting to things after, you're gonna prefer either like a Death Knight or a Paladin, that kind of tank instead.
Yeah, the main thing with tank choice is just how it plays, because I mean, really, tank choice only really matters on like 1 or 2 fights during a raid. Like for example, in Taurus, every tank was perfectly fine for every fight, and then you had tanks like Monk who were really good on Argus, just really forgiving and sort of easy to be successful in that fight as a monk, and DKs because of their grip on Agrimar. But for the vast majority of situations, tank choice really doesn't matter, and as long as you play it well, you'll be perfectly fine.
Yep.
Moving on, next question from Exxon where do you see Prot's future in High Mythic Plus?
We'll see. I mean, just have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not going to be playing other classes for it, so be pushing as high as we can, and I think we'll be fine. But haven't really done super high stuff on. I think we've done 13 or 14. I don't know what other people have completed now since the gear vendors. But I think it's never been a warrior thing that we're dying. It's like them dying the mechanics or overtuned dungeons or stuff like that. So it's hard to say right now what's going to be great in the high end Mythic Plus, I think.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's likely we'll probably be in a similar spot, just in terms of how often we're picked for a competitive Mythic Plus. I think most people are still going to be playing DK or DH to actually push really high keys.
Yes,
But
Or Pally now, but yeah.
yeah,
I think Prot's definitely more comp dependent in that you kind of need other group members that can play around you. I know I mentioned this in the actual like protection channel, but Prot Warriors are one of the only tanks without like a strong slow just in their own toolkit. Paladins can spec into Consecrated Ground. Monks keg smash slows still. DKs can talent into a really good slow on Death and Decay.
Isn't the kick smash slow the same? 20% for
Is it
Thunderclap?
only 20?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I
20.
think it's just Death Knight and Pally, right? With more than 20%?
Maybe, but
Yes,
I
I
think
believe
it
so.
is.
Because they have
Yeah,
two talents. It's the talents for them that
Right.
increase.
the idea being that you don't bring your own kiting tools and stuff like that. You need it from outside sources like a frost mage
Yeah,
or
bring a
other
Frost
such
Mage.
things.
Yeah.
Kind of as an extension to this question from Vilbeaky, what kind of utility would you like to see added to Prot to bring it more in line with other tanks such as DH or DK plus?
I think you look at DH and DK, and what they have is like I guess what you could call mob control, like grips and silences. So that's that's the main thing, but they can't go and add grips and silences to every tank, so it's kind of
Right.
tough to think of something that they could add that's not that would make them good for utility.
We kind of touched
Yeah.
on this earlier when we were talking about Mythic Plus, where I feel like our damage kind of outweighs the need for more specific utility than that. Because, like we said earlier, our damage isn't just a bit higher, it's significantly higher than the other tanks in Mythic Plus, if you're polling correctly.
Well, the big thing for the AoE grip too was in Legion, what you would pull like half the damn dungeon and AoE grip it together, stun it, snare it, and kite. And with the Gahoon affix and all this stuff, you really can't do those huge pulls that you were doing. Like I haven't seen anybody doing it. You can do
Yeah.
pretty sizable pulls, but you can't do like half, like from one boss to another, pull everything, grip and AoE it down. So grip lost a little bit there. It's still powerful. Like it's still great to be able to group everything up for everybody to AoE it down. But I don't know what to add for us to match that really.
Banners, dude.
Banners would be cool.
Yeah, you think something warrior themed, like things like silences and grips don't really fit into that at all. So something like banners would be pretty cool.
I mentioned this to Sense a while ago, and it was more of a meme than anything. But I think if they gave us a talent that let us use, or even just baseline, that let us use a two-handed weapon in our main hand along with the shield, kind of like that Crusader talent from Diablo 3, and then gave us something like our auto attacks have a chance to stun our target. I feel like that would be something really cool and really unique to us that could come in handy for
Could be.
a little bit of
Yeah,
things.
that'd be actually pretty cool. Like Titan script for Prot, except it's in one hand, I guess. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. All right, so someone else asked, why are the Prot guides appearing over on Wowhead instead of the Skyhold website? Well, the primary Prot guide is on Icy Veins. So that's where the main protection warrior guide is going to be and will always be. Skyhold website, we won't actually have a full Prot guide on the website itself, just because there's no real good reason to have the same thing in multiple places. Just easier to maintain and easier for other people to find it. We will have a bunch of stuff on the Skyhold website, like maybe shortened versions of the guides and things like that.
Something more like tips and tricks.
Yeah, like primarily the purpose of the Skyhold website is just for articles and random posts that people want to write. So won't have full guides on there, but things like it, I guess.
The same guy, Lack 5 AP, asked, return of block value, yay or nay? We kind of touched on that earlier. Talking about
Great if you get a high level shield quickly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think
one
it
of those
makes
things.
shield upgrades more fun and interesting, I guess.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I just got this really good shield. It's not like it's just a stat stick. It's like something more now, which I guess is interesting.
It's
At
one
the
of those things
same
where it's
time,
good
though.
if you get it. It's really frustrating if you
Yeah,
don't.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
Especially if they're wanting to tune each new raid encounter with new K values and stuff, and you go into a new raid with a shitty shield again, and you need that new shield from the new raid really fast, and you don't get one. It's gonna hurt in Mythic progress, but
Yeah.
other than
David
that,
said, why not dual wield 2 shields? I agree. That would be cool. Should be able to dual wield shields.
Dude, shield slam hits with both shields like
Yeah.
Raging Blow does.
Boom.
That would be sick.
It's like the what are those things called? Those mobs that actually don't that do have basically like 2 shields. They're like robots. I don't know.
Oh,
Never
the
mind.
Draenei robots, dude.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah, like that. That'd be cool.
All right. This one for Lala. Why are you always dead on Garothy?
I always die on Garathi because I'm a fucking idiot and I don't like to use cooldowns at the
No,
right
that's
time.
the wrong answer. It's the healer's fault.
It's the healer's fault. It's
Always
always
the
the healer's
healer's
fault. Yeah, always.
In reality, I've died to Garathi probably in 75% of our kills on farm. I didn't die any of our progress time. I just always space out on Garathi and die on
Do you
farm because it's so
are you trying
boring.
to parse? Are you just like standing there and taking the
I mean,
barrage to
yeah,
parse?
that's
there
what you
is
do.
yes, there absolutely is that part to it, but you can live it just fine. I'm just a greedy fuck, and I don't
Yeah.
use my cooldowns.
I gotcha.
Uh,
Got it.
move,
No, you can go ahead. Sorry.
moving on. One of the would you guys like to see more difficult solo scenarios such as the Mage Tower challenge? One of the first, if not the first, I think you actually were the first warrior to do it, Sense.
Yep.
Is Prot still able to solo things like that before?
I don't know. It'd be weird to do without the bracers. I think
Yeah.
yes, we should see more scenarios. I think that the Mage Tower overall is just fun as hell. It's
Yeah.
a great thing that they added.
Mage Tower's awesome.
When you're leveling, I don't know how leveling has changed, but when I leveled and you're trying to solo some of the quest mobs that say it's a 3-man group quest or whatever, and you don't have bracers, you have to pull mobs for victory rush and stuff. It can be rough. It hurts. So you have to play cautious depending on what you're soloing and your gear level for sure.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed the Mage
wise.
Tower. The only problem I had with it was that if you weren't prepared, bracers made that significantly easier than it would have been otherwise. If they give us more ways, if they make scenarios like that spec specific instead of role specific, and they give us ways to proc victory rush reliably when we need it, solo scenarios like that would be a lot more fun.
I was gonna say I don't think bracers were necessarily that big a deal compared to victory rush in the challenge.
Yeah.
There was
Yep.
even a period of time where I was considering dropping the bracers because it took me 20 or so, 30 or so tries on it. And I was like, well, it's all just burst, and I could just burst heal it back. But
I think
bracers are a nice cushion.
the soloing thing, it's every tank is gonna have a harder time soloing things,
Right. Yep.
compared to before, just because
Yeah.
the self sustain is gone. So if they did do another more solo scenarios like Mage Tower, which I definitely think they should because they're super fun, they'll probably design them in such a way where there's something to heal yourself with, or something to that effect.
Yep.
But I actually think it's gonna be interesting because you know those people that who they just solo things the DH, what's his name? Meone?
Neon? Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how these changes are gonna affect people like him, if they're still gonna be able to solo things like they were before.
Well, he's
how they-
really, really good, and I'm sure he'll find a way.
Yeah, probably. All right, I think that was our last question. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to ask them right now. But otherwise, I think we'll wrap this up then. Did we have any Discord questions? I don't believe so.
I don't believe so. No, we didn't.
Unlucky.
Feels protection, man.
Yeah.
Well,
Are you guys excited for BFA?
I'm pretty excited. It was one of those things where it didn't really hit me as early as it did in other expansions, where I was like, God, I wish this expansion was over already, so I can play the next one. But when it did hit, it hit really hard, and I'm just so like, I want to be there already. I want to do the 120 stuff because the dungeons are all super cool. I like them compared to Legion dungeons a lot.
It's a lot more variety.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. Someone asked, or Vel asked, what are the best legendaries to level with? I think you want to go
Stuff
for
is boots.
yeah, like movement speed stuff, and also like Kill Jin's Burning Wish is also pretty good. Just like
Shoulders
mutes
can
everything.
be good too.
Yeah,
If
but yeah,
you're- Good.
main thing is boots and Tefus, I think.
Gliders and shit like that are going to be really important, especially if you're horde. You
Yep.
can get a lot of places really easy if you have gliders.
If you're leveling in war mode, the belt is useless because demo shot's already on a crazy short cooldown. So
It's
don't
that
use the
fucking
belt.
20-second cooldown, dude, is great.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's pretty much it. That is going to wrap it up for this episode of Skyhold Talks, boys. If you guys have any more questions, all of us are pretty much always available in Skyhold. We will continue to do these going forward. The next episode is going to be most likely going back to DPS and will be sometime later when we reach a decision. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Nope, good.
Nope. Just yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. It's fun.
All right. Thanks for watching, and everybody have a wonderful expansion launch after the servers go down and back up
And down again.
and back up again.